Committee meeting to order. Tonight's meeting is being held with members of the Planning Committee, members of the Executive Management Team, Deputy City Clerk and City Clerk in the Council Chambers. Members of the Senior Leadership Team and other staff are available to answer questions in person and via video conference. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. There's only one item for the consent item. I will read out the title associated with the recommendation. Recommended motion printed on the agenda. Members of Planning Committee may ask that an item be held so that it can be discussed further. If an item is not held, the motion is deemed to be approved on consent. No further discussion of the item will take place at Planning Committee, and the item will go forward to the May 16th City Council meeting for approval. And the item on the agenda is zoning bylaw amendment for 953 Mapleview Drive East, Ward 10. Anybody want that held? Hold. Okay, it's held by Councillor Morales. It'll be discussed after our public meetings. We have two public meetings this evening. Although registration to speak prior to the meeting was encouraged, if you have not yet registered and wish to speak, please email cityclerks@barrie.ca, cityclerks all one word, @barrie.ca, or call 705-797-5353 and staff will send you the information required to participate. Tonight's applications were submitted by the developers and deemed complete under the Planning Act to proceed with the public meetings. The first public meeting is to review an application for zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision submitted by Rainsong Land Development Inc. for lands legally described as part of south half of Lot 15, Concession 11, former Township of Innisfil, known municipally as 680 Lockhart Road. The subject property is located in the Hewitt's secondary plan area. The second public meeting is to review an application submitted by MHBC Planning Limited on behalf of Loon Avenue Lands OP Inc. for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for lands legally described as South Part Lot 11, Concession 12, part of Lot 1, 51R-4733, formerly of Town of Innisfil and known municipally as 338 Mapleview Drive East. Members of Planning Committee will be listening to the presentation and comments received during the public meeting, but will not be making comments or debating the item tonight. Members of Planning Committee will have an opportunity to provide comments when the staff report is considered by Planning Committee at a later date. As the purpose of the public meeting is to provide the public with an opportunity to give comments on the subject application, the ward councillor will have an opportunity to ask questions of staff and questions of clarification. This will allow them to ask questions on behalf of residents unable to attend the meeting. Other committee members, including myself, can ask questions of staff after the meeting. Questions will be noted by staff and the applicant, however, will not be responded to at this meeting and will be addressed in the staff report presented at a later date. Michelle Banfield, Director of Development Services, could you please confirm that notification was conducted in accordance with the Planning Act for the public meeting?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Ward, it was.
Thank you. I now call upon the first public meeting. I will now call upon a representative from Jones Consulting Limited to provide the presentation concerning an application submitted by Rainsong Land Developments for a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for 680 Lockhart Road. Okay, Ray, I can see you online, so go ahead, Mr. Duhamel.
Great, thank you very much, Your Worship, and members of Committee and Council. My name is Ray Duhamel with the Jones Consulting Group. I'm presenting this evening on behalf of Rainsong Land Development Inc. for their Phase 2 lands related to an application for a plan of subdivision and a zoning bylaw amendment. I'm going to share my screen. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Great. We can. Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, this is an aerial photograph of the lands that are subject to the application. They're outlined in red. They comprise 24.5 hectares of land, and they have frontage of approximately 227 meters on Yonge Street, and there's road frontage of 593 meters on Lockhart Road. So again, for orientation, this is the Lockhart Road, which is east-west, and Yonge Street, of course, north-south. Lockhart Road also happens to be the boundary of the municipal boundary between the city of Barrie and the town of Innisfil. Some of the surrounding land uses of developments in this area, they're all within the Hewitt secondary plan area. There's immediately adjacent to the site, fronting on Yonge, is the Crown Barrie developments that's proposed for high density. Immediately across Yonge Street is ASA Development, which is also a mixed use high density development. Rainsong's Phase 1 lands comprise this area here, if you can see my cursor. And then this related company is also GG 9 Mile, which is right here, and that subdivision is registered in more than one phase, and construction is ongoing right now. And then not too long ago, we were before the committee as it relates to applications for zoning bylaw amendment subdivision for both Amenity Homes and the Lockhart municipal files. And council recently approved the bylaw for Amenity Homes. Very briefly, I will share with the committee that in my opinion, the applications are consistent with the provincial policy statement, conform to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and to conform to the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. This is the Hewitt secondary plan. And as I noted, the lands are outlined in red, as you can see here, and they fall within a few land use designations. The first is the yellow area, which is known as neighborhood area, or sorry, as residential area in the Hewitt secondary plan. And then this purple color, as you can see, which is the Yonge Street mixed use corridor. And in particular, there's also this blue star shape, which represents a secondary school. And as you will see when we move forward into the slides, that is earmarked for on the draft plan for a Catholic high school site. This is your new official plan, if you can see that okay on here. I know this is not yet in effect, but I thought I would share with committee and members of the public what the new official plan is sharing about these same lands. So the lands are within, outlined in red again. They're adjacent to what is identified in the OP, the new OP, as an intensification corridor. This kind of stipple pattern that you see throughout this area is known as the designated greenfield area. And then if you move over to the right side of the screen, you can see actual land use designations. And similar to before, they're now called neighborhood area in this rather than residential area, but effectively much the same thing. And then instead of mixed use in purple, like the Hewitt secondary plan, those are now shown as community hubs. And those lands will represent the Catholic high school, as I already described, as well as a recreation center, library, and a public elementary school. So two operations there. And then in terms of phasing, you can see on this plan, the lands fall within phase 1 of development, which is allowed to proceed immediately. The process in proceeding with an application for a plan of subdivision zoning bylaw amendment is to first submit a conformity plan to the city of Barrie so that technical staff can review the application to confirm whether or not the plan as proposed generally conforms to the Hewitt secondary plan. And in this case, we provided for, at the bottom of the screen is Lockhart Road and to the right is Yonge Street. So we provided for a mixture of housing types, including townhouses, detached, semi-detached, and there was also some back-to-back townhouses proposed right in this location, as well as the school block and a collector road that's northbound that connects between Lockhart and Madeline, and then a collector road east-west that would connect Amenity Homes and the park immediately next door through the Crown development site out to Yonge Street. And conformity approval was granted in May of 2020, and that allowed the applications to proceed for submission because the city staff deemed that the application generally conformed to the Hewitt secondary plan. And that opened up the requirement to start the technical work in support of the application. And there's, as the committee is well aware, every application contains a wide variety of technical studies that have to be undertaken. But for the benefit of the public that are watching at home, please be aware that these studies are all available to be reviewed on the City of Barrie website. And if you had any comments, you could of course email me, or you can send those comments directly to the city's file manager, who is Andrew Gamario. And following the completion of that technical work, a draft plan of subdivision was prepared, which you see on this slide. Overall, if you can see the unit distribution in the right-hand table here, 467 units is proposed. And these are made up of varying types of single detached, 118 semi-detached, and 147 street townhouses. And that overall was added to that is the public high school block here. And then the school was identified on the phase 1 plan for our public elementary school. The school board reached out to Rainsong to discuss creating additional land that could be added to their school block as part of this phase 2 draft plan. So if you recall my point before, where we had some back-to-back townhouses in this location, that has now been converted to a block for use to add to the size of the public elementary school site that will be located here. The maintenance of the north-south collector road between Lockhart and Madeline is still on the plan, as is the east-west collector between the Mattamy and Mattamy Park out to through Crown and ultimately out to Yonge Street. So overall, we're looking at an area of, as I noted, about 24.5 hectares approximately. There's 60 people and jobs per hectare, which is pretty notable in this case because there's such a large amount of the site, over 6 hectares, is dedicated to institutional uses. And then overall densities are for units per hectare is ranging from about 28 to 50 for low to medium density uses. And then an internal local road network, as you see on this plan. One of the submission requirements is also the preparation and submission of a pedestrian circulation plan that identifies the location of dual sidewalks. So in this case, both collector roads would have dual sidewalks. And then this street here, which provides a direct connection between the school and there's a park on the Mattamy subdivision, that local road would be provided with dual sidewalks as well. This is the proposed zoning bylaw schedule. So fairly straightforward. The majority of the site would be zoned in the R5 category, and that category permits single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse units. The school block here would be developed in the same zoning category as the adjacent school block. The special exception in that case were to allow for residential uses in the event the school board determined that they did not want to acquire that school block. The same would apply for the Catholic high school site in the event that they didn't want to acquire the lands. There would be provisions for residential uses beyond that. And then a small triangular area here, as you can see, which is proposed to be zoned neighborhood mixed use. And that's basically being held with a special provision to allow for coordination with the adjacent Crown development site as they move forward through the process as well. And this is my last slide, and it just provides an illustration of the type of built form that is contemplated, not exactly, but it's these are sample renderings that were prepared. The top examples and this example on the left side are the semi-detached product, and then this bottom right shows the townhouse product. And you'll notice that some of the more obvious points that are built right into the policies of the Hewitt secondary plan are not to have, and the implementing zoning bylaw are not to have protruding garages that stick out in front of the houses and block the view lines down the street, create a more pedestrian oriented environment, variation in building materials and overhangs for pedestrian comfort, and different materials for architectural interest as well. So, Your Worship, members of the committee, that concludes my presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I will stop sharing unless any questions are raised that you would like me to share again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeHamel. I will now call upon Michelle Banfield, Director of Development Services, to provide an update on the status of the application.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and good evening, Deputy Mayor Ward and members of Planning Committee. So planning staff are currently completing the technical review process associated with this application. We didn't hold a neighborhood meeting for this project due to the number of limited properties really within the circulation distance. This is not uncommon in the secondary plan areas, in particular when the majority of the surrounding property owners are part of the landowners group, but members of the public still have the opportunity to ask questions, reach out to the applicant, as Mr. DeHamel said, or staff, and provide comments either this evening or really at any time up until council making a decision. So the technical review is underway, not only with city staff, but also our external agencies and our technical team across the city. An analysis of the application will come back in the staff report when it's brought back to Planning Committee. So at the moment, the main planning and land use matters that we're hearing about and we're studying conformity with the Hewitt secondary plan, including not only land use, but the site servicing, grading, stormwater management, anything that ties into the master studies that were prepared for the entire secondary plan. Just ensuring that the built form, the site layout, the overall design contributes to an active streetscape and pedestrian realm, efficient use of land and resources, optimizing the existing land as well as planned and existing infrastructure. Connectivity between this property and things that are planned and existing in the surrounding area. As always, preservation of private and shared boundary vegetation and any impacts on traffic operations in the area. So planning staff are targeting either the late part of 2022 or the very early part of 2023 for the staff report to be brought forward. All of the comments that happen through the technical review process, as well as anything that we hear this evening, will be included and reported on in the planning staff report. As always, all of the submission materials, key dates, everything associated with this application are available online on the city's proposed development webpage. This is under Ward 9, and the file manager, Andrew Camaro, could be contacted directly as well. So thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. If you are registered to speak we'll turn to the public comments. If you're registered to speak at this public meeting, please use the raise your hand function or press number 9 on your phone to raise your hand and press number 6 to unmute yourself. I once again ask that a member of the public that has joined the virtual meeting to speak on the matter, please begin by stating your first and last name and your address for the record, and then proceed with your comments. We have one person registered to speak at the meeting. I will now invite Kathy Kolbach to provide comments. Ms. Kolbach.
Hi there. Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Can I ask a question? Am I the only one registered at this point to speak? And I know because typically you didn't have to send out notification because of it being a new development and it's not near existing neighborhoods. But is there anybody
Not
else?
sure if that's true. Maybe I'll get a clarification from Ms. Banfield.
Deputy Mayor Ward, thank you for that. No, that's not the case at all. There is a Planning Act requirement. What I was talking about was the neighborhood meeting. That is not, it's additional.
Right.
It's not required under the Planning Act. So as it relates to the Planning Act requirements, 100% those notice. That was a question you asked me at the very beginning. Was it done in accordance with the Planning Act, which is a sign on the property, the ad in the newspaper, as well as mailed out notices to people within 120 meters of the subject site.
You are correct, though, that you're the only one that's registered to speak at the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I just had a couple of comments. In a complete community, I'm thinking that I see that there's a lot of townhouses, detached and semi-detached, which is acceptable under the potential zoning that you're looking for. But there are no apartment buildings. And I see that there are probably future under the multi-use area where maybe apartment buildings could go. But I'm wondering why, if we're looking at good land use planning, why somewhere within this community there are no sort of rental apartment buildings for people, because as we know, there's such a problem with affordable housing and people being able to buy. And it looks like you've got approximately 194 units that are single detached homes, and then semis, and then townhomes. So I'm just wondering where the actual affordable housing comes in, and is there any chance that you could put, rather than maybe a block of townhomes in somewhere, put an apartment building?
Okay, we don't do back and forth at these meetings,
Okay.
but those questions will be answered in the staff report.
Okay, and I think that's really important. And also accessible units. At this point, I'm not sure whether there's accessible units there for people with disabilities, but we need to look at accessible units. Obviously, the tree canopy is huge for me, and you've heard this more than once and probably every meeting. So whatever the number of trees, and I will go in and have a look at these reports. and read about how many trees are actually being removed off the property and what the landscape plan is to put them back. So when you're taking, 50 or 100 trees away to build this development, I don't know what that number is, but are you putting the same number of trees back somewhere? So,
Are you still there, Ms. Colbeck?
yes, I am.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And I
Okay.
I
You
just,
faded
I
away for
scribbled a few
second.
notes.
No problem.
Deputy Mayor Ward, but I was just making sure that I've touched base on what I wanted to. So I think the biggest thing is really, affordable. Affordable is important, and rental units are important. So a lot of people are wanting to buy into subdivisions and buy detached and buy townhomes, but where are the rental units for people? So thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Well, I'll turn to the ward councillor. Councillor Morales, do you have any questions of clarification?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Couple questions. The school zone, could we get staff to put the site plan back up on the big screen? Basically the image that looks like the map of the subdivision.
Would you like me to share my screen for that?
Is it yours? Yeah. Yes, Mr. Duhamel, please.
This is the draft plan that has the school on it, as well as the school to the north with the additional institutional block. Is that the plan you would like shown on the screen?
Correct. Let's stick with this one. So there's two proposed or potential, sorry, not proposed, potential school sites. Is that correct?
The school site to the north is a draft approved school site on the a public elementary site on the phase 1 draft plan. And they have indicated that they would like additional land, which is why there's additional blocks shown here. And the Catholic School Board has indicated that they are looking for this location. That dates back to the approval of the Hewitt secondary plan, that they're looking for a Catholic high school site or secondary school site in this location, right at the corner of Yonge and Lockhart.
Okay, perfect. So my question is in regard to kiss and go drop-offs on school zones. There's been comments for forever, as recently as Councillor Harvey bringing up a good motion about making sure schools stick to their site plan and address traffic flow properly. But again, this has been an ongoing issue forever. Is there a way that your applicant, Mr. Duhamel, can design their units to basically use the land that they're using in a way that allows the future potential school sites to be properly integrated into the subdivision? And what I mean by that is almost designing the site plan ahead of time for the school, knowing exactly where the driveway is going to go, knowing exactly where the circular area is going to go, knowing exactly where the garbage is going to go. So we might be in the subdivision one day and go, wow, this was properly designed, instead of duplicate roads, duplicate driveways. For example, you telling me there's two potential schools. It would be great if they found efficiencies by sharing a common access point. That way you're not building two cement access points. Maybe it's something down the middle. I've seen that be very innovative with apartment towers where they share an access point. Still meets code, still wide enough, all that stuff. But it's just better design and clogs the roads up less during pickup and drop off. Is there a way that your applicant can almost basically site plan design, knowing that it can change these schools so they can become better integrated into the proposed development?
Through your worship to Councillor Morales, while it's certainly possible to do a conceptual layout of a school and try to communicate with the school board about the size of school that they intend to build, is it 1 story, is it 2 stories, what the design parameters are going to follow, I think practically and functionally, that would be a concept plan. It wouldn't provide you any comfort because they wouldn't be bound by that conceptual plan. Just like if the owner of this land was looking to develop that site, there's a lot of work that is involved in the actual site plan design process, working with grades for stormwater management, your location of your parking facilities and whatnot. And I think that you need to undertake that technical work specific to the site plan block, which is what the site plan control process is really all about. So my thought on, as a response through your worship to Councillor Morales, is that provide, very clear instructions to staff that you expect that the alignment of the kiss and ride is a fundamental component of the site plan review process, and make sure that they're satisfied that the kiss and ride that's designed into the school site plan process is to staff satisfaction and not, and I suspect that is a key consideration for staff. I think you need to be aware in this particular instance, these two blocks are located separate from each other. This is an elementary public site. This is a Catholic secondary school site. So there's certainly, there are different boards and different categories of schools. This school will have an integrated relationship with the adjacent recreation center, park, and library facility. So it's vastly different. But I will say in both cases, both the rec center and the school board have the opportunity potentially for shared parking. There's a lot of opportunities. I've worked on other I can think of an example in Wasaga Beach where there's a significant amount of parking for a park that is also used by the school, and the school contains some community facilities that are recreational community center related. But these sites have ample frontage on two collector roads, so there's lots of opportunity to create in my view, a very workable and functional kiss and ride system. And the same thing with the high school site in this particular location. There's lots of frontage on Yonge Street and on Lockhart, both are arterial roads. So there should be plenty of opportunity for staff to review, and your traffic engineering staff specifically to review the efficiency of that kiss and ride. And much the same way you pay very particular attention to a drive-through at a restaurant. Make sure you have enough stacking spaces in that restaurant and how it functions. I think staff, in Ms. Banfield would be much better apt to describe than myself about the effort that staff can go through to review the kiss and ride related facilities on a site. But from a conceptual level, I don't see how the school board could be bound by a concept plan that we prepared in summary of where I was ultimately taking my answer.
Okay, perfect. And are we at the stage yet where the meters diameter of the collector road in this proposed subdivision?
The width, through your worship to Councilor Morales, this is a 24-meter collector road. Madeline, I believe, is a 27-meter collector road, and then Yonge Street and Lockhart are they're 31 meters on Lockhart and Yonge Street in this location, closing in on 41 near the intersection, I think.
Perfect. Thank you. It's my understanding that engineering sets out those standards in the city of Barrie, but is there a specific reason why your applicant requires such a wide road? Obviously, there's lots of studies and not studies, which is reality out there that wide roads just promote speeding. I just don't want to see, Loon Avenue issues with speeding be replicated. Nice white road, people kind of, press their gas, whereas a thinner road that has a better public realm and streetscape by design reduces speeds. So I'm wondering if we have the opportunity to design it right, and we're not, a future councillor isn't having to use city funds to bring up the curbs and put in speed bumps, things of that nature. Is there a technical reason why it requires that much width?
Through your worship to Councilor Morales, the width of this collector road here, north-south, and the width of the collector road east-west is prescribed by your transportation development services staff, where they both have identified that those are both minor collector roads. And you're right that there's a great care and attention needs to be taken to avoid speeding when you have long stretches of road, and there are long stretches of road throughout the Hewitt secondary plan. And the road geometry allows for the possibility of higher speeds, even though they're not supposed to be doing higher speeds, and there will be no parking allowed on the collector road. Then it becomes more challenging later on during the detailed design process to figure out ways to raise the intersections with grades or otherwise to try to slow down the traffic that otherwise has opportunities to travel faster. So the long answer, my apologies for the question, is that really we're instructed on what is expected of us from a design perspective from the development services staff. And if there was a desire to convert this road to a local road, that's certainly within our ability to convert the plan. It wasn't effectively what I'm saying, your worship, through to Councilor Morales, is not developer driven.
Perfect. Quick question. Where the proposed school sites are, I see I don't know if you're able to zoom in a bit. I see a couple parcels, right? Future parcels. There we go. Yep. There we go. So yeah, the 129, 130, 131. Yeah, a little bit more north. Go a little bit more up. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, go this way.
Yep. So these guys, yeah, these units here.
These ones here?
Correct, but on the left side.
Oh,
So,
over here?
Yeah, yeah. So because it's in the proximity of future school sites, is there any intent to make those units not have driveways on a collector road? Again, I'm just picturing another Loon Avenue. I'm picturing another Livingston East, where you have a school and you have driveways, and people are going to be maybe not parking, but they'll be, what is it called, standing? No standing zone, like where they'll be in their cars, they'll be hovering. People will need to get out of their driveways because they live there, and it just becomes another situation. Whereas if this was designed in a way where there was no driveways, and it can be done, where the units don't have driveways facing the main road because there's access through a laneway in the back, or there's another type of design perspective. You see a lot of this in different major roads in the GTA, and I say that in a supportive way. You see it because it's smart design. So I was wondering if maybe the units at least fronting the school sites could have similar consideration.
Well, I think through your worship to Councillor Morales, there's obviously examples of design scenarios where you can have dual frontage lots or whatnot. I think the driveways on the collector roads is one of the last opportunities available to actually slow down traffic. And because we have geometry that's actually quite straight according to the transportation manual. We have one of the key differences now moving forward that has never been the case in the city of Barrie previously was that universally removing parking from collector roads. And then if you remove driveways, I don't believe that the result would be a safer street. I think you would actually result in even more traffic, higher speed potentials. So, certainly that's something that could be looked at. But if I think of all the other, there's many school sites within Hewitt that have been designed with, similar configurations. And I don't think a few driveways in this case for these semi-detached units opposite the school is going to result in a Loon Avenue situation to that point.
Okay, okay, I appreciate the feedback. I think that's a comprehensive discussion with the road width. And final question, your client does your client have consideration for the level 2 rough-in conduits in the garages to make houses charge proof for EVs?
I believe they do through your councilor, your worship to Councilor Morales. I believe they do provide those rough-ins. But I should have anticipated that question from you, and I apologize. I should have get absolute clarity from my client on that. But if I'm wrong on that, I will certainly clarify for you. But I believe I heard from one of their staff members that they offer that as an option for their purchasers. So
perfect, and you definitely get the benefit.
I'll let you know.
You definitely get the benefit of the doubt considering the EVs that you guys put at 79 Dean Avenue, which, by the way, are purpose-built rental in Ward 9, and they're going up right now. So those are all my questions, Acting Mayor Ward.
Thank you, Councilor Morales. If anybody else has written, first of all, I should ask, nobody has come in, nobody's signed up. Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. If anyone has written comments, you are asked to submit them to Andrew Gamero, planner in the Development Services Department at andrew.gamero@barrie.ca. That's andrew.gamero@barrie.ca. We'll now turn to the second public meetings. If members of the public have not yet registered or wish to speak, please email cityclerks@barrie.ca or call 705-797-5353, and staff will send you the information required to participate. I will now call upon a representative of MHBC Planning to provide the presentation concerning an application for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment submitted by MHBC Planning on behalf of Loon Avenue Lands OP for 338 Mapleview Drive East in Ward 9. Assuming we have somebody online. Okay, we can see you now.
We actually have Eldon Theodore, who's going to be doing the presentation today. I'm not sure why it's actually invited me as the panelist, but Eldon Theodore should be on, who's going to be doing the presentation.
Okay, just give us a minute.
Yes,
Okay. we can
thank
see
you. Yeah, that was a bit of a mix-up. I was kind of wondering why I didn't have control. Thank you very much. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Alden Theodore. I'm a partner with MHBC, and I'm going to share screen to start presentation.
We can see it.
Thank you. Perfect. So I just wanted to note that here with me tonight, we have a number of people, just in case there are any technical questions, both representatives of the ownership group, Bob Forrest and Colleen Forrest, Peter Rich from Requeza Design, Inc., our concept designer, John Northcliffe from JD Engineering, our traffic engineer, Carl Repka from Counterpoint, our civil engineer, Suvish Malanta from Grounded, our hydrogeological and geotechnical engineer, Gordon Nielsen from McCulsey Nielsen Associates, our natural heritage and ecological specialist, and Nick Milley from MHBC, our landscape architect, as well as our arborist. They'll all be available if there are any technical questions that come up tonight that I may not be able to answer. But the proposal for you tonight, as you can see, is we are presenting development of the northern portion of this property for a townhome community. And just to provide a bit of quick background, the subject lands are currently vacant. They have a total land area of 29.43 acres, but the actual buildable area or the development limit that we're defining as shown in green here is 6.33 acres. And the intention is only to develop that component to protect the balance, dedicating the balance of the property to the city for environmental protection. As a result, this proposal will actually be increasing the amount of environmental protection designated lands on the overall property. Property has frontage on Mapleview Drive East, but the development limit and buildable areas we show here is separated from that frontage due to wetlands and environmental areas central to the property. Excuse me. The property also abuts the owner's active application to the west of 521 Huronia, which is shown in blue over here. And the buildable area and the development limit that we show represents a logical extension of those lands to the east. And for this committee's benefit, a plan has been provided to the city that illustrates what the seamless integration of both plans would look like in terms of shared movement between those properties. So from official plan level, the property is, in terms of the planning areas, it's split located within a residential area and industrial planning area. And as you can see from the blue outline, the development will only be located within the residential planning area of the site. And more specifically, looking at land uses in the current official plan, the subject lands are designated general industrial and environmental protection area. And the industrial designation permits a range of industrial employment uses. However, in March of 2020, the city recommended the conversion of the industrial designation to residential on this property. And it should be, it's important to note that the city's new official plan contemplates residential for the portions that are currently designated industrial. And I will note that later in the presentation. But as I noted earlier, and as shown on the balance of the property, there is no intention to develop environmental protection lands. The intention for this application will be to increase the amount of environmental protection lands on this property. In terms of Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, the subject lands are within a a defined policy area. And as a result, they will require permits from the LSRCA. And through this process, we have pre-consulted with the Conservation Authority on this site. And that consultation will continue as part of the development approval process, with anticipating that the form of development that comes back to this committee and council will be one to the satisfaction of the LSRCA. Further to that, and just from a natural heritage perspective, development limit is identified within what is defined as a level 1 with existing development designation, as well as having a small portion within level 3. All this to say that these defined policy areas are required to be demonstrated that the development impacts can be mitigated by way of an environmental impact study to the satisfaction of both the city and the Conservation Authority. And through our submission, an environmental impact study has been prepared to confirm the appropriate development boundaries and ensure that environmental protection is achieved as part of this application process. As I'd mentioned earlier, the city's approved a new official plan as of February 14, 2022, with Municipal Affairs and Housing to eventually approve that. And that official plan designates what we identify as shown at the top right here, areas beyond what we show as the developable limit as residential. So again, contemplating what this application intends to advance through this process. And from a zoning perspective, subject lands are primarily agricultural, with a small component being environmental protection. And the proposal for this application intends to rezone the lands similar to the approach that's being taken for 521 Huronia to implement provisions that allow for a built form that's consistent with the concept. So the proposal itself is for 53 traditional townhomes and 52 back-to-back townhomes for a total of 105 townhome units. This development plan is intended to respect the limits of the adjacent wetlands, working meticulously to both avoid as well as recognize it as an asset to the overall development. It's why you see unique features in the plan, such as pockets of wetland, continue to have elements such as tree protection and management areas and restoration areas, all part of a environmental and landscape strategy to both protect and recognize the features of the site. We learned a lot from the application of 521 Huronia. The overall plan was designed to take into consideration a lot of the concerns that we heard through that process. This plan started from defining what we believed are the environmental features, which will be reviewed and considered through the process, recognizing an appropriate separation distance from existing homes, integrating elements such as landscape buffers, and then identifying where those limits are, where it's appropriate to put in building footprints, and where it's appropriate to define road patterns. And as I noted, a 6 meter wide landscape buffer is contemplated along the northern property line. And this is to ensure protection for privacy, as well as an enhancement of that edge in combination with existing planning along that edge. And the proposal also provides an on-site amenity for resident enjoyment, and that's nestled around outside of the wetland and environmental areas, creating a unique feature for a common feature for residents. Parking on the site, parking and loading are all be internal to the site, with all turnaround and all movements being controlled internally. 228 parking spaces are proposed. That results in a total of 2.17 spaces per unit, which exceeds the bylaw requirement of 1.5 spaces per unit. There will be 105 garage spaces, 102 driveway spaces, and 21 surface vehicular parking spaces. We understand through our community meeting that we had in December of 2021 that there were concerns raised about traffic calming on Loon Avenue. And as part of this process, we intend to work with the city to assist in the control of speed of traffic along Loon, recognizing this development has an opportunity to help contribute to an off-site solution that currently exists within the community today, and ensuring that this development doesn't contribute in any way to that environment. The proposal also provides an enhanced pedestrian experience through sidewalks that will be located within the plan that provides for pedestrian connections to Loon Avenue as well as the development to the west. And as I mentioned, the on-site shared amenity, we have a close-up here at the bottom right of what's anticipated, which is a really full spectrum of potential residents living here. So outdoor gym circuit, that'd be great for seniors as well as great for regular residents, as well as a children's playground in the center and a gazebo area for resident enjoyment. And this area is accessible through pedestrian pathways that are intended to be pervious and provide for sustainable connections. Just talking about privacy and transition as it relates to this development, the proposal intends to maintain healthy separation distances that help to exceed what are typical standards of transition from stable neighborhoods, from existing neighborhoods. The buildings, as we show in the cross sections below, they're outside of the 45-degree angular plane, which is one of those tools we use to demonstrate both mitigating shadow impact, providing for appropriate separation, and protecting for privacy. And that's in addition to a 2-meter high fence contemplated along the property line and a 6-meter wide landscape buffer. All of these in combination help to provide a strong buffer relationship to existing homes. As well, the buildings have been oriented to facilitate appropriate separation in terms of the separation, and even in conditions where we have a side yard condition as shown at the top, it's anticipated that those facades would have quite minimal windows and would be augmented again with a 6-meter wide landscaped area that provides for that same level of buffering. All of these measures, we believe, results in a proposal that will help to minimize impact on neighbors' backyards, protecting privacy of homeowners, and ensuring that there's no unacceptable adverse impact. And as I'd mentioned earlier, this application will increase the overall environmental protection. Our environmental impact study that we've undertaken, we'll work through the process to help confirm the appropriate buffers as it relates to the footprints and ensuring and validating their location on the site. And measures have been recommended and have been taken to ensure that there's protection of wildlife habitat, and as well as wetland features, that they are protected and enhanced by way of the management of this site. So should this application be approved down the road, you would see, shown in the proposal to the right, approximately 80% of the overall lands being protected through redesignation as part of this application. And that it really is the owner's objective to prioritize the natural environment as a feature and as well as an element as an enhancement on this site. And just my last slide here is just about some of the architectural typology contemplated, which is consistent with what has been shown and what has been contemplated as it relates to 521 and Huronia. Having a contemporary architectural style and just maintaining that consistency is important in terms of community cohesiveness and creating a local identity within the site itself. And that's my last slide. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to present, and happy to answer any questions of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Theodore. I now call upon Michelle Banfield, Director of Development Services, to provide an update on the status of this application.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor Ward. So planning staff are currently reviewing the technical review of this application. The neighborhood meeting was held back at the beginning of December in 2021 with approximately 40 attendees, including the Ward 9 councillor, planning staff, the owner, the applicant, and the members of the consulting team. So at that time, the resident feedback surrounded topics such as privacy protection, buffering from the new development, stormwater management concerns, a concern about the increase in traffic and potential overflow of parking on local streets, and preservation of existing tree cover and environmental protection lands. So the technical review that's underway includes not only development services staff, but also other city departments, as well as our technical agencies. And in this case, a particular commenting body that's going to be important is the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. So analysis of the application will take place when a staff report is brought back to Planning Committee. The primary planning and land use matters being considered by staff at this time include the basically establishing the acceptable development limit, and that's going to include the buffer from Lovers Creek and the wetland feature, justification of the change in the land use from general industrial to residential, traffic circulation and integration with the neighboring property, which as Mr. Theodore said was 521 that was actually just approved just last evening by council. So as always, we take a look at municipal servicing connections and transitioning from the existing built form in the neighborhood already with this new proposal. So the applications are expected to return to Planning Committee either in the later portion of 2022 or the early portion of 2023. Just depends on how long some of these technical things take to work through. As always, all of the submission materials, key dates, anything that was submitted on this application are available for viewing online on the city's proposed development webpage. Also under Ward 9, everything is under Ward 9 this evening. And you can always contact the file manager directly, and that's Celeste Kitzemetry. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. And I'll turn to the comments from the public. If you are registered to speak for this public meeting, please use the raise your hand function or press number 9 on your phone to raise your hand and press number 6 to unmute yourself. I will ask that once a member of the public has joined the virtual meeting to speak on the matter, please begin by stating your first and last name and your address for the record, and then proceed with your comments. I understand we have one person, and it's Kathy Colbatch. So welcome back, Ms. Colbatch. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry, I
Yep,
actually have no comment at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. I can ask the Deputy Clerk, Ms. Williams, do we have anybody else that's registered to speak?
No, Deputy Mayor Ward, we have no further speakers.
Okay. I will now turn to the Ward Councillor, Councillor Morales. Do you have any questions of clarification?
Mr. Theodore, at this point, does your client have any preference for your Section 37 monies? I know it's a long process. The reason I asked the question is there might be a good opportunity to integrate, find efficiencies, all those buzzwords, between the Section 37 monies from 521 and this one. So instead of doing 2 projects that are, we can do one that is more impactful, specifically for Loon traffic concerns.
Mr. Theodore?
Your worship, to you, Councilor Morales. It's a great question. I think it's a question that's very early in the process. We have not put our minds to that. However, I do believe that Section 37 is at the discretion of the city. So if there is an opportunity to combine Section 37 contributions of both 520 Huronia as well as this application towards a bigger, more impactful improvement for benefit for the community, I think that's a great idea. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think if that's the city's desire, my client's happy to work with the city from that objective.
Perfect. I appreciate it. And I do know that conversation doesn't happen at this stage. But again, it might allow staff and the city to have a stronger vision on what to do on Loon, knowing that this will eventually come down. So that would be a conversation I would like that occurs sooner than later. Maybe it doesn't go anywhere, but maybe it does. Other than that, could you describe a bit more of the, if you could go put the image back up, there was kind of a little walkable area. I don't know what to call it, on the southwest corner of your site plan. If you could describe more how the use would be for that for residents.
Sure, thank you. And yes, so this is I believe the area you're speaking to is right here. And what that is intended to be is amenity space. And what we discovered through the process is that through the identification of both the wetland features as well as elements of tree management and enhancement on the site, there is an opportunity to create a unique amenity space for the residents on the site that would be connected through pedestrian walkways on the site itself. So this area is intended to include, as I mentioned, outdoor equipment, a playscape, all of which would be nestled within both existing vegetation, as well as you see here on the plan, this is an enhancement area, a 5-meter buffered enhancement area that would further augment existing vegetation within this area. So we think it's something that is a really great space that really provides a unique recreational opportunity that residents can share on the site.
Perfect. Those are, what's your, I hate focusing on this because in the new OP, it says we shouldn't be UPH centric and focused, but what's your UPH just for context purposes on your proposed site?
That is also a great question, and I had that at the top of my mind. We're 42 units per hectare.
That's it?
That's it, yeah.
Questions a counselor has never asked you before at a meeting.
The requirement in the bylaw we understand right now is 40 units per hectare, so we're seeking 42. And again, the thrust on this application has not been through the process and working with my client on this before going to the public and before making an application. There was a more robust concept, and through discussions and through recognition of environmental features, the plan was pulled back to recognize and to work with the environment. So, the outcome of 14 units per hectare is the product of that that portion that you, as members of the committee, don't have the opportunity to see.
Okay, perfect for that. Quick question for staff. They're at 42 units per hectare. Maybe they look at some of their corner units and design them in the way where they're duplexes or in-law suites, because obviously we're becoming more of a generational living society. Does that count? Does that increase UPH, or if it's a duplex unit, it counts as one? I guess that's more of a staff question. Through you, Acting Mayor Ward.
Ms. Banfield.
Through Deputy Mayor Ward to Council Morales. So we basically, to get the calculations, we do a blended people and jobs per hectare calculation, and it is based on the single unit, like the first unit count. So I mean, I think some of this density is looks probably a little bit less as it relates because of some of the environmental protection, but staff are going to look at all of this. The density is obviously going to be important as a part of an integration to not only the existing subdivision in the area, but also what we just approved. So we'll look at all of that through the technical review of the application.
Perfect. And the environmental definitely should be a core component. That shouldn't be on the table. That said, so you, just to clarify, I think the answer you gave me, so I can understand it. The first unit counts towards UPH, but if a unit is a registered legal duplex from the original build, it doesn't count as an added number to the UPH. It does or it does not. I just want to clarify.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Council Morales, it does not.
It does not. Okay. Perfect. Those are all my questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'll just check one more time with the Deputy City Clerk. Has anybody registered?
No, Deputy Mayor Ward, there are no further speakers.
Okay, well, thanks for your comment. And if anyone has any further written comments, you are asked to submit them to Celeste Conformity at Senior Planner in the Development Services Department at Celeste, that's CELESTE, Conformity, KITSEMETRY at berry.ca. That brings us to the end of the public meetings. We have one staff report that was held by Councilor Morales. Do you want to put it on the floor, Councilor Morales?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I'll put it on the floor as printed. I don't have any questions or comments. I just held it if for the local councillor to do with it as you wish.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's carried. We are now at inquiries. Are there any planning inquiries of staff? Seeing none, meeting is adjourned. The next general committee meeting will be held on Monday, May 9th. The next city council meeting will be held Monday, May 16th.